Priya Shravasi upon the Lord. Askalitamati, uninterrupted attention. Mama, mine. Yaya, by which. Aham, I. Etat, all these. Sad, asad, gross and subtle. Swamayaya, one's own ignorance. Pashye, see. Mai, in me. Brahmani, the supreme. Kalpitam is accepted. Pare, in the transcendence. Translation by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada. O great sage, as soon as I got a taste for the personality of Godhead, my attention to hear of the Lord was unflinching. And as my taste developed, I could realize that it was only in my ignorance that I had accepted gross and subtle coverings, for both the Lord and I are transcendental. Purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. Ignorance in material existence is compared to darkness, and in all Vedic literatures, the personality of Godhead is compared to the sun. Whenever there is light, there cannot be darkness. Hearing of the Lord's pastimes is itself transcendental association with the Lord, because there is no difference between the Lord and His transcendental pastimes. To become associated with the supreme light is to dissipate all ignorance. By ignorance only, the conditioned soul wrongly thinks that both he and the Lord are products of material nature. But in fact, the personality of Godhead and the living beings are transcendental, and they have nothing to do with the material nature. When ignorance is removed and it is perfectly realized that there is nothing existing without the personality of Godhead, then nescience is removed. Since the gross and subtle bodies are emanations from the personality of Godhead, the knowledge of light permits one to engage both of them in the service of the Lord. The gross body should be engaged in acts of rendering service to the Lord, as in bringing water, cleansing the temple, or making obeisances, etc. The path of archana, or worshiping the Lord in the temple, involves engaging one's gross body in the service of the Lord. Similarly, the subtle mind should be engaged in hearing the transcendental pastimes of the Lord, thinking about them, chanting His name, etc. All such activities are transcendental. None of the gross or subtle senses should otherwise be engaged. Such realization of transcendental activities is made possible by many, many years of apprenticeship in the devotional service, but simply attraction of love for the personality of Godhead as it was developed in Narada Muni by hearing is highly effective. Om Gena Timirandasya Gana Gena Shalakaya Chakshu Omilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Guruve Namaha Sri Chaitanya Mano Vistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Yuta Padakamalam Sri Guru Vaishnavam Cha Sri Rupa Sagajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Abudutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Pada Sahagana Lita Sri Vishakam Vitam Cha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namustate Tapta Kanchana Gourangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sute Devi Panamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatrubhishya Kripa Sundibhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Subhashari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimad Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharani Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Shatarani. Namo Mahabharanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namni Gura Chishe Namaha. Ananda Lilamaya Vigrahaya Himabhya Divacha Vishunaraya. Tasmi Mahaprema Raspadaya Chaitanya Chandaya Namo Namaste. Sri Chaitanya Chandaya Namo Namaste. Sri Chaitanya Chandaya Namo Namaste. Sri Chaitanya Chandaya Namo Namaste. Hare Krishna. So here's the translation, English translation, Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 5, Text 27. O great sage, as soon as I got a taste for the personality of Godhead, my attention to hear of the Lord was unflinching. And as my taste developed, I could realize that it was only in my ignorance that I had accepted gross and subtle coverings, for both the Lord and I are transcendental. Hare Krishna. So this is Narada Muni speaking to the great sage Srila Vyasadeva, who was in the middle of a great task of writing the Vedas for the benefit of everyone. So he was dissatisfied after he wrote so much of the Kamakandik, the fruitive activity, and the results of fruitive activity type of information in the Vedas. So his spiritual master, knowing what was going on, arrived and started giving him his instructions to settle his mind, settle his heart, and get him into the cream of the aspect of Veda's writing, which is writing about the pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And he, Narada Muni, was describing his own experience. So he says, "Oh, great sage, as soon as I got a taste for the personality of Godhead, as soon as he immersed himself, Narada Muni, in the transcendental pastimes of the Lord, my attention to hear of the Lord was unflinching," he says. My attention to hear of the Lord was unflinching, our first lesson. We don't know how to love the Lord, and therefore, by the mercy of Guru, we are learning how to love the Lord. And that's why our devotional service is through instruction. When a person gets a taste like Narada Muni was describing to Vyasadeva, the attention and the desire to hear about the Lord would be unflinching. It's not a property belonging to Narada Muni only. When you get a taste of the sweetness of hearing about the pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then one would want to hear more. And that is a very, very, very good sign. A sign that makes us gather where we can hear about the Supreme Personality of Godhead daily and do just that. And then Narada Muni continues that as my taste developed, I could realize that it was only in my ignorance that I had accepted gross and subtle coverings. For both the Lord and I are transcendental. So he was saying gross and subtle coverings, and he did in fact go through gross and subtle coverings when he came here on the earth. Actually, a number of times, he was in the heavenly planet, and then he got cursed first by Lord Brahma, wound up in a different heavenly planet. Then he came back and he got cursed again because of things that he did. He was not paying attention to what he was doing to try to praise or to serve Lord Brahma. So Lord Brahma cursed him, and this time he came onto the even lower, the medium planet. And first he was in the heavenly high planets, now he's in the medium planet. But his mother was a faithful devotee of the Lord. And when he served sages who had gathered in the place for the Chaturmasya, the 4 seasons, the rainy season, or the 4 months of the rainy season, and he served them. And Narada Muni also followed his mom and went to the sages. The sages gave him prasad, mahaprasad, the remnants of what they had tasted from his mom's cooking, and heard about the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he got a taste then. Taste of Prashadam, taste of the pastimes of the Lord. And so later, when by providence his mother died from a snake bite, he didn't take it that, oh, Lord has abandoned me. He took it as a way in which a sannyasi thinks, now I'm going to devote my life fully to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So he was born again after he died through Lord Brahma, and now he was Narada Muni. And Narada Muni has been preaching the glories of the Lord and saving devotees, talking about devotional service, and also saving those whose minds have been turned away from devotional service towards the royal path of devotion. So now he's talking to Srila Vyasadeva and explaining how the taste of the Lord does in fact make you want to hear more. And not only that, the realizations also come. And in this case, you realize that, well, past times he had accepted gross and subtle coverings. The Lord and I are transcendental. He's talking about the spiritual level. We are, as Papa says so many times, we're not the body, we're the soul. We know that. We all know that. Sometimes we act like we are the body. Sometimes we get influenced by people who are acting at the bodily platform because we are around them. That's why we are warned to give our association rather than take association. To give our association means, as much as possible, turn the conversation that you're having with somebody that's not a devotee, turn it so that they may hear something spiritual from you. Even if you give it directly and they can take it, then fine. If they cannot take it and you have a nice way of bringing the same idea out with words that may not be obvious to them that it's transcendental, it doesn't matter as long as the effect is there, and the effect will be there if we put out the conversation in such a way that they benefit from the teachings of Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. So, Sri Prabhupada says in the purport, ignorance in material existence is compared to darkness. And in all Vedic literatures, the personality of Godhead is compared to the sun. The sun gives brightness. In the absence of the sun, then there's darkness. Srila Prabhupada explains that it's like light and darkness are side by side. Once you go into light, you don't feel or you don't see or feel any darkness. Once you come into darkness, then there's no light. As it says here, Srila Prabhupada says the personality of Godhead is compared to the sun. Another reason the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, is compared to the sun is that the sun is all-pervading. In that sense, the Lord is equal to all. The sun does not shine in one place and refuse to shine in other places. The sun is always there. When we turn our attention away from the sun or our backs to the sun, then of course our faces don't feel the effect of the sun. That analogy is given to mean that when we turn away, or if we turn, I shouldn't say when, but if we turn away from Bhakti Yoga, then we don't feel any effect, wonderful effect from Bhakti Yoga. Therefore, the advice is simply not only to perform Bhakti Yoga, but to stay with Bhakti Yoga in our whole lives. We don't have to understand everything, but we have to trust the bona fide spiritual master to lead us. And we just obey. It's funny, that reminds me of when I was a Christian. I still am a Christian, of course, but at that time when I did not know anything about Krishna consciousness, there was a song that says, trust and obey, for there is no other way to be happy in the Lord, but to trust and obey. That is more important than sometimes we try, and sometimes we try to understand by speculation, and that's always dangerous. If we're going to speculate, we better know what we're talking about. The Lord can help us. After all, the Lord's in our hearts. Our minds can sometimes wonder about things. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 1, Text 1, Srila Prabhupada says in the purport, one looks up in the evening, in the dark, the night, at the stars, and he wonders what's in the stars or what the stars are made of. That's natural. So yes, curiosity will always be there. But curiosity should be put in the proper perspective, because if you don't know, then you have to learn and learn from the right source. And we've been given the right source as a bona fide spiritual master, and also the books written by Srila Prabhupada. The Lord from within will also guide. But in the beginning stages, the Lord from without, in the person of the representative of the Lord, the spiritual master, is most important in our lives. So Srila Prabhupada says that hearing of the pastimes of the Lord is itself transcendental. It's transcendental association, he says, with the Lord, because there's no difference between the Lord and his transcendental pastimes. Sometimes we have difficulty with that. But it's described that the Lord is absolute. Everything about the Lord is also the Lord. Everything about Krishna is Krishna. We would never be able to actually feel it in the lifestyle and with these bodies that we have. Because for us, we have things by the Lord's permission, we have certain material things, but we are not those material things. Everything about the Lord is the Lord. There's no difference between the Lord and his transcendental pastimes. So then Srila Prabhupada says to become associated with the supreme light is to dissipate all ignorance. Once we accept that Krishna tu Bhagavan Swayam, Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, there's no one at his level and no one above him. Once we incorporate that and believe that in the very core of our hearts, then anything about the Supreme Personality of Godhead becomes priority for us to get to know or to do in service. Hearing of the Lord's pastimes is itself transcendental association with the Lord. It's also been explained to me by my spiritual master, His Holiness Bhakti Swami, that if you listen to a lecture by Srila Prabhupada, you're associating with Srila Prabhupada. So there's a subtle connection that's there when we're listening. And Srila Prabhupada's lectures are always uplifting. You will learn something from it. It's interesting how not everything is retained by the mind, so that if you hear a lecture and you hear it again, the same lecture, again and again and again, every time you hear, some things you may remember about it, but there will be new things that you did not know that you will pick up. And it will make all the difference in the world. Therefore, repeating, listening of lectures is also quite useful. Rather than have the mind tell, well, I heard this one already, therefore I'm going to go to this other one. Yes, all of the lectures can give transcendental benefit. But sometimes when you repeat, you tend to remember more things from the lecture. So that when we are also sharing, then we're sharing in knowledge. And we can give more out. So we should never be turned off from hearing the lecture that we've heard before, or Srila Prabhupada, hear it again, and again, and again. Srila Prabhupada says, hearing of the Lord's pastimes is itself transcendental association with the Lord. So to become associated with the Supreme Light is to dissipate all ignorance. And Srila Prabhupada says, by ignorance only, then a conditioned soul wrongly thinks that both he and the Lord are products of material nature. Hopefully, we've been told that so many times that it's wrong, that the Supreme Lord is a Supreme Spirit. Material nature is a separated energy of the Lord. The Papa says they have nothing to do with material nature. So that when ignorance is removed and it's perfectly realized that there's nothing existing without the personality of Godhead, then essence is removed. It's very, very important. Sometimes we feel that when we are asked about something that is bad, then that must not be part of God's creation. Well, that's funny, because we are in a place where there is, in fact, good and bad, high nature and low nature, but they are both creation of the Lord, permitting Lord Brahma, the Lord permitting Lord Brahma to create that. Krishna permitting, or Vishnu permitting Lord Brahma to bring those here, because that's the life. Our life is, we have the choice to make, this is the Tatastha Shakti. We can choose the transcendental, or we can choose the material. We can choose the good, or we can choose the not so good. Here it's a school. What works best? If you choose a bad thing, the results are there. If you choose a good thing, the results are there. And then we have the intelligence in order to discern what's good and bad. That's our life. Now, associating with devotees, they'll tell you always, always to stay with Krishna. Now, if there's a devotee you're associating with, and he or she is more steeped temporarily in the material energy and talks all things based on the material energy, they know about Krishna still. So then it becomes our duty to help the person to pull their minds into Krishna consciousness and get away from material energy and meditating more on the material lifestyle and so on. So we help each other this way, because Maya is not sleeping. And at any point, any of us can be pulled into the material energy and spend so much time and get pulled away from the help that comes by associating with the spiritual energy. So we have to help each other at all times, you remember. Sometimes, because we may think, oh, but I've heard of this before, therefore it's all right. I still remember it, but do our actions show consistency with what we know? That's a problem for some people. Or it's a problem for all people some of the time. And therefore, by associating with devotees can sense that when we are too materially inclined, because it will show in how we act in our words too, what we say. And in that way, another devotee can help us to come back to center, the spiritual, rather than go to one end, which is material. So it is important to keep good relationships with devotees, because now, as our life is on, we're still alive in these physical bodies, we will be held by devotees in the way that was explained. And also when it comes time for us to leave the body and the senses are shutting down, it's the devotees that can come around and know to call the name of the Lord, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, just so we would remember the Supreme Personality of Godhead at the time of death. So when we leave these physical bodies and the subtle bodies, the subtle body doesn't take us to another existence that's in the material world. The subtle body is in fact dealt with by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, so that we can go back to his abode and be happy and stay happy once and for all, and serve the servants of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Srila Prabhupada is reminding us we have gross bodies, and they should be engaged in the acts of rendering service to the Lord. Physical things, cleaning the temple, cooking, dressing, doing puja, praying, reciting the mantras, the main mantra being Hare Krishna Mahamantra, all the other mantras that supported Panchatattva Mahamantra, all of that. The path of Archana, worshiping the Lord in the temple. So Prabhupada says, it involves engaging one's gross body in the service of the Lord. So we have these gross bodies. Okay, these gross bodies are not us. We understand that. But when we use it in service of the Lord, then everything that's been given by the Lord to us, even while we're in this jail, the material world, is now being offered back to him. Life and the secret of life is to serve the senses, please the senses of the Supreme Personality of Godhead according to the spiritual master's instructions. When we do that, we'll be happy because the Lord will crank up the happiness, internal happiness. Externally, you won't find much happiness because externally, much of what's going on is power play, politics, one nation against the other nation. And of course, the demigods are also busy reminding us that we've gone off center as a population of the world. We're not taking God consciousness more seriously, and therefore they also use the weather to remind us, bad weather to remind us that we're not doing the right thing. Unfortunately, there's so much ignorance that even bad weather is just taken for what it is. It's bad weather. We have to try to survive it. Some people lose things, and some people, well, they try to help others, and then we go on. That's just the way it is in this planet. No, it's not the way it is in this planet. The demigods are responsible for that. The demigods are being used by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He has permitted them to remind us to do the right thing. Because when transcendence and transcendental activity is taken seriously by more and more people, it will also reflect in the way that the weather actually is given to us. We have no say in the weather. The demigods do control the weather. The demigods control other things too that we use in trying to survive with this physical body. They are the limbs of the Lord. They will, in fact, do things nicely for us if we serve the Lord nicely. So for us as Hare Krishna devotees, we have the task of presenting Krishna consciousness to the rest of the world the way Srila Prabhupada has already prepared it. We read Srila Prabhupada's books, listen to his lectures, listen to those who are also preaching based on Srila Prabhupada's lectures or what his instructions are, and help the whole world. We should think globally. How can we help the whole world? We may act from where we are, which is acting locally, but we should think globally. After all, it's one planet, and we all, this planet here is our temporary home. As long as we have to realize that temporary home. Some people are dying and see other people dying, they still think this place is permanent. Why? Well, it's only Maya can help people think like that. So, Srila Prabhupada says, we should do all of the activities that have been given to us by the spiritual masters to do. They were all transcendental activities. We use gross body, subtle body, but we should keep doing it. Such realization of transcendental activities, Srila Prabhupada says, is made possible by many, many years of apprenticeship, sometimes lifetimes. So when we get attracted to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, following like what Narada Muni is telling us, he himself got a taste and then want to hear the Lord all of the time. And if we do that, our connection with the Supreme Personality of Godhead by hearing is highly effective. So in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 6, text 35, in the purport, Srila Prabhupada says, the first and foremost of all devotional engagements is to hear about Krishna. It's a very powerful and transcendental method for purging the mind of all misgivings, of all material things that aren't necessary. As it said, our activities can be categorized in two main places. What's necessary and what's important. All activities that are transcendental are important. all activities that pertain to this to the physical body are sometimes necessary and sometimes unnecessary, depending on what we do. Mm-hmm. What we need to keep the body going, that's necessary. Other things, that's just a waste of time. And I don't have to go through details of that. They are unnecessary. Everything we do in service to Krishna and Krishna's devotees, that's important. Why do we say necessary and important? Well, necessary things are things that you do for the physical body, because we have this physical body. As long as we say we're alive, the way it is, the physical body is already dead, but we are in it, the soul is in it, so it's moving, and that way we say we're alive. So as long as we're alive, there are some things we have to do to keep the body going. So Prabhupada says you should keep the body healthy for as long as possible. Not because we have to do activities that are material, but because we're using the physical body to do things that are transcendental, to do bhakti yoga. So the body should go on as long as possible. Keep it as healthy as we can. It's going to break down at some point. Yes, it's designed that way. But the breakdown is the process for preparation to go back to Godhead. If we have used the physical body in serving the Lord's devotee, serving Guru, and serving the Lord himself, now in deity form. So once we hear more about Krishna and we get more enlightened about Krishna, then it becomes necessary for us to realize we got to detach from everything that draws the mind away from Krishna. And that's what Sri Prabhupada is saying. Detach ourselves from everything that draws the mind away from Krishna. So that's vairagya. Detachment from matter and engagement of a mind in spiritual matters. So Sri Prabhupada always helps us by saying impersonal spiritual detachment, impersonal, is more difficult. Yes, we understand we're not the body, but then they want to merge into this Maya bodies into the effulgence of the Supreme Personality of God. That would not benefit us. We may be satisfied at the spiritual level, but there's no activity when we go to the Brahma Jyoti. So, the Prabhupada says we should be hungry, literally hungry for transcendence. And when we detach from the material energy, it's only two things left, material and the spiritual. We are in the material, we're not in the spiritual. We're in the spiritual, we're not in the material. Therefore, to be in the spiritual is something that we should help ourselves, help our minds every day to be attached to. We can, because since we're always being challenged by different temptations from Maya, we can, in fact, set up our day from the morning when we get up into the evening, program it, literally write it out, or go on the computer and pull up a program that you can write, Excel, Word, whatever. That at this time I do this, at this time I do that, at this time I do this, and so on. If you're working, then of course there's a period of time that you're at work, but once you're not at work anymore, you come home, you have better control of your time. Before you go to work, it's also a time you have better control of it. Set it up so that all the Maya activities are gone. Don't put it in. Don't put it in. Set up a program. Literally, we're telling you, write it out and live by it. Because at some times when the temptation comes, Maya says, do this, then your intelligence kicks in. But at this time, I do that according to what I've set up. So then you do that. In fact, you could be much more productive that way. It's interesting how we might think, oh, but I know my life and I can, I know at this time I might want to do this. No, we are distracted a lot by a lot of material things around us. So to train the mind is sometimes to put things down as to how we do or how we work our day and follow that. And without having to tell you, you just don't put Maya stuff in there. Today I watched this kind of movie and a material type movie. No, there are things that are spiritual counterpart for all things that are material. We just do that instead. So, in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 7, text 1, Srila Prabhupada talks also about hearing. To hear from Krishna, to hear about Krishna, we can hear from Krishna too. Krishna's Bhagavad Gita, he speaks that. To hear about Krishna in Srimad Bhagavatam, or to hear from Krishna in Bhagavad Gita, hear him directly, is itself righteous activity. And for anyone who hears about Krishna, Lord Krishna, who is dwelling as Paramatma in everyone's heart, will act as a best wishing friend and purify the devotee who constantly engages in hearing of him. This way, the devotee naturally develops his dormant transcendental knowledge. Transcendental knowledge is there. It's just dormant because we have covered it up over lifetimes and lifetimes with material things. But once, by the mercy of Srila Prabhupada and Srila Prabhupada's disciples, we are now listening to Krishna Katha. So that is purifying. And every day we decide to come on to listen to more in Zoom, or even outside of this program, listen to more lectures and more activities, even the ones that are acted and recorded, videoed. It reminds us of the Supreme Personality of Godhead's pastimes. So we develop the tendency not only to do devotional service, but to stay in devotional service. So everyone should think, all right, so I do this, I do that to serve the Lord and his devotees. How can I improve the quality? If we don't have time to do more, then at least the quality, that's always on us to improve it. How can I improve on the quality of my service? I don't have answers for that. No problem. There are 9 processes to love the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One of them is praying. It's a very, very good prayer to ask Guru and ask Krishna for ways in which our devotional service can improve quality-wise. So that at the same time, we can do more. And believe me, all kinds of ideas can come. It's just by asking. Krishna will feed our minds, will arrange to feed our minds. Do this, okay, in my house, there's this other thing that's available. All right, so if I'm doing this service, how can I improve? Just think from one service to another. How can I improve that? Do that as a prayer and see what happens. And the other thing that comes from it is when you get ideas to improve the service and you do those, you become happier. Serving makes us happy, but serving with better quality makes us happier. And therefore, the quality improves, the happier we become. Who wouldn't want to be happy? And devotional service, the other thing that happens is then you're not too concerned about leaving the body. Because now, when you're happy, then leaving the body means not the process of quitting the physical body, but the thought of connecting with the Supreme Personality of Godhead and being with him in his abode becomes the dominant consciousness. And that always brings happiness. Because in the material world, material suffering is there. There's disease, there's old age, and all kinds of things that happen to others. The news is full of them. They don't change. There's always one thing after another. The same kinds of things. The people are different and the place is different, but the news is pretty much the same and it's distressful. But when we chant the holy name of the Lord and listen to his pastimes, that makes us happy. And that also gives us the thought that, listen, it's like that in the spiritual world. We're hearing about it, but the time will come when we will be part of the transcendental pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Those thoughts are wonderful thoughts. So, Srila Prabhupada also says, development of devotional service helps us to be freed from the modes of passion and ignorance. To be freed from the modes of passion and ignorance, which means goodness and transcendence is all that's left. Material lusts and avarice, wickedness, they're all diminished. If you get to a point where it may cross our minds, but we don't take it seriously. So Papa said one of the best things to do for a mind that's telling us or trying to buy into temptation to do things that are wrong is ignore it. Ignore it. If we think to ignore it, our intelligence will help us. Because intelligence right now is what is used by the soul to keep us in the right frame of mind and the right activities. So intelligence, once we ignore the negative thing that the mind is being pulled into doing and making us do with our senses, then all those things, material lusts and wickedness and those kind of things, they are diminished. Then what's left? Impurities are wiped away. Then the candidate, the devotee trying to go back to Godhead, will be steady in pure goodness. They will become enlivened by devotional service and also understand the science of God perfectly. Then you hang around devotees. That should be constant. Hang around devotees that talk about the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Devotees are growing in different levels. So some devotees, they may take Krishna consciousness seriously, more seriously than you are, and you can learn from them. Some of them are taking less seriously than you are, and you can help them by pulling them up, by talking more about Krishna in the conversations that you have with them. In that way, then people are hearing more about God. And we already know that material world is not going to serve us so nicely if we stay here. We have to go back home. We've already been told that several times. So devotee association is what's left because that's where the reminders are. So take devotees seriously. And also, as we said earlier, they are the ones that will remind you at the time of death to chant Hare Krishna, to remember Krishna, so that we can go to Krishna, because it's set up that way. Those who remember at the time of death Krishna, they go to Krishna's abode. So we got it made. It's just a question of how seriously we take it. We got it made. Srila Prabhupada has worked hard to write so many books that we can learn from. Would we do it? Well, that's up to us. And if we do it and do it more seriously, then Krishna takes us more seriously. Because ye atamapapadante tamstateva pajamyaham. The extent to which we surrender to the process, we learn to love God that way, and the Lord also reciprocates with us by making spiritual life sweeter and sweeter and sweeter. So the Lord's pastimes are always there. And there's one meditation by my spiritual master. It was talking about being born in the material world and the unfortunate situations that he's in. Unfortunate in that he's heard about the Lord's pastimes, but he can't take part in them. And this is our situation. You hear the Lord's pastimes, wonderful. Sometimes we pity ourselves that we're not part of it. But it's only a matter of time. It's only time that separates us if we take the process seriously. To go back and be a part of the Lord's pastimes. It is wonderful. We read about it. We know about it. Sometimes we hear other devotees talk about it. Different ones that we may not have heard before, because the Lord's pastimes are what? Not only eternal. Eternal obviously means numerous, all kinds of things. And they're repeated in different arenas too. So the Lord is having a great time. And so Papa says, why are we here in the material world? The Lord is beckoning us to be part of the pastimes that he's going through, performing. That's where our happiness will be. Hare Krishna. So here's the Translation for today, Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 5, Text 27. O great sage, meaning Vyasadeva, as soon as I, meaning Narada Muni, got a taste for the personality of Godhead, my attention to hear of the Lord was unflinching. And as my taste developed, I could realize that it was only in my ignorance that I had accepted gross and subtle coverings, for both the Lord and I are transcendental. Hare Krishna. So I think this could unmute your selves if you want to make comments or whatever you're taking from this today, or ask questions also. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare
The
Krishna.
pranams all go to Srila Prabhupada.
Today,
Today's class, I just caught so many points from this class today. And I don't know which one I can say first or which one I can say last, but I have too many of them. And the way you are telling Narada Muni, he was eating remnants and then he got into that much power. And I see sometimes, this some people, I heard that they come for prasad only to the temple. But, they are very lucky. That's one thing. And then trust and obey. There is no other way. That's what he said. That was very good. And conversation, when you're talking to a devotee, when person, she or he may like it or not, and we try to bring that conversation into spiritual thing. We keep on bringing that one and keep on taking back their own way. That was very hard. I'm sometimes scared. I will go to their way instead of I'm bringing them to spiritual way.
That's important that you mentioned that, because it happens to a lot of people.
Yeah.
Sometimes the person may be a little more forceful in what they're saying, and you may think that, well, I may not have time to chime in and bring Krishna consciousness to it. That may cross the mind. But once it crosses the mind, then you know how. The Lord is in your heart and the Lord is in the heart of the other person.
Yes.
So then just a simple prayer request for the Lord to give you a chance to speak to this person about transcendence. Just that. So sometimes we think we have to do everything. But that's our false ego, though. Sometimes we don't even think about it that way, because, oh, yeah, but we want to help. We want to help. And this person is not giving me a chance to help. Yes, it's true. The person is not giving you a chance. They're going on and on and on and on and on. But the Lord is in the heart of that person. The Lord is in the heart of you. And if you pray and say, Lord, can you help me take over and talk about the consciousness, you'll be surprised that, you just time and then you hold it better, say, yes, yes, yes. You agree. And then here you are talking.
That's a good way.
Talking. Yeah, but pray for the help, because you never know when you'll be able to interject. But once you ask for, because you want to interject something Krishna conscious to the person, you ask Krishna, he definitely would let you, because this is how he wants everybody to be about. Anyway, you go back to Godhead. Very important point that you brought up. Hare Krishna.
Very good. And then when you said, repeating every class, the past things, that is very important. Sometimes may think, keep on same thing they are doing. Narada Muni, he went there and his mother was like that, and he came back and he is doing all the stories. We keep on listening, but like you said, more and more we listen, the more and more nectar will come.
Yeah,
that's what I thought. And
Narada
all
Muni,
the points. Yeah.
Narada Muni is incredible. He's incredible. Very, very highly powered Shakti-based avatar, Supreme Personality of Godhead.
And
so much is there.
And another thing, I do some service in the kitchen or something. A lot of people, they say, oh, no, Mataji, how much you are doing in your age, you are not doing this. I said, what will I keep this body, because I had to put in back to the service only.
Yeah.
So if something happens, and he will take care. That's what I feel.
Yes.
But see,
that's good thinking.
Growing body and eating too much, That's also, I never think like that. When I'm in the temple, I forget everything. When I do the service, whatever capability for me God has given, when I do that, I just forget everything. That is the main thing I have. I think Krishna will bless me with that, and all the senior devotees, my Guru Maharaj too.
Absolutely. Krishna will bless everyone that has a consciousness that you have the same way. You forget everything, you immerse yourself into devotional service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That's what we're going to do all of the time in the spiritual world anyway, except that it's a whole lot more fun because there's more facility to do that in the spiritual world. And everybody around you is doing it too. Not like, here are some commies are not doing this. So it's those things even more fun that way.
So that is what detachment of matter and attachment of God. That is, I thought. That is a very good thing you said. And serving makes me happy. And which when I correct myself and then serve, it makes me more happy.
Yeah.
So if I have any difficulties, if anybody comments about me, so correcting that and then serving, it makes me more happy.
That's where the happiness is. That's where the happiness is.
All these points you gave, it's very, very fantastic today, Prabhu. Thank you.
Krishna's
thank you
mercy.
Very much.
Jai, Guru's mercy, Krishna's mercy.
Hare Krishna.
Any other comments? And please ask questions too. They don't have to be on the topic. It can be outside the topic too. That's fine.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam, all glories to
Jai,
Prabhuji, it was really wonderful class today. So Mataji already said like it was really good and many points. One thing I want to just clarify
you want to add to? Yeah.
Which came in this purport, Prabhupada Maharaj covers very nicely. So like the path of Archana or worshipping the Lord, I mean the gross body, to purify the gross body, that Prabhupada said like that, and for the subtle body, not to purify our mind, to chant. These two things. So both are required. So sometime I heard from the devotees say like we should not do the deity worship from our side because we do not qualify that much, and like we can commit mistake, we can do offenses. So is it like the way we should stay away, not to do deity worship, and or by taking the suggestion from our guidance from the pure senior devotees, we should do that carefully and try to avoid the offenses, mistakes, so that we can have the chance to get our gross body purified. That is the first thing, so that we can engage our subtle body in the chanting. Just want to I want to hear from you, Prabhuji, so that you can put your light on that. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. And I agree with you on the second point that you made. Rather than be a little bit unsure of yourself and therefore not do the archana, the service, the worship, we should do the worship based on what we have been told to do. Do the best that we can. Krishna does not look at the service in terms of what has been done, but the intention behind it. We've been told that, and why is that? The intention is what Krishna looks at the most, because he knows we don't have perfect senses anyway. And if you have perfect sense, you don't have perfect senses, you can't do things perfectly. But you can have perfect intention though. You intend to do things as best as you can. And that's all you need to do. Apply yourself to the service based on what we've been directed to do, and do it to the best of ability. And do it the best of ability in terms of your hands, gross body, and do it conscientiously also, the subtle body. I really do want to do this. Not that I've been asked to do this, I may want to do this, because if I don't do this, then this other thing will be, there will be some kind of reprisal or some kind of punishment. No, there should be to the point where, although we start practicing, but once we got the habit of it, and we should be looking forward to doing the service and doing the service to the best of our ability. That's it, the best of our ability. And once we're doing the best of our ability, the Lord will know. The Lord's in our heart, the best of our ability. That is all that the Lord requires. We would be doing things perfectly in the spiritual world, because then we don't have the mind to distract us, and the material mind to distract us. There's nothing material there. So do the best that you can based on the instructions. Don't take the instructions lightly. See, that's when the temptation comes. We do things that, sometimes without much effort or much happiness or much determination. We should be determined, we should be enthusiastic, and we should do things. Sometimes challenges come, so we should be patient, and sometimes you have to repeat some things, and you have to go ahead and do it, or get help when we're not doing things well, we're not satisfied, then get the help in order to make things work out better. The best should be for the Lord. There should be anything for you. This is our consciousness. Anything for you, dear devotees, anything for you, dear Guru, anything for you, dear Supreme Personality of Godhead. That should be our consciousness. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji. Yeah, it really helps, Prabhuji. Yeah.
Krishna's mercy, Guru's mercy.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna. Any more comments or questions? Okay, it's also 9 o'clock, so whenever you like, you can chime in and.
Maybe I'll close it out, Parikshit Prabhu. Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna.
Very informative class, as the devotees said, and a lot of nice takeaways. I think the thing that I kind of took away the most is that point you made about that which is important and that which is necessary. So, we I don't want to say we all get caught up in that, but it's very commonly. I'm sure many people that resonated with many people. Thank you for that. Then I liked also the point where you brought up is the point of prayer, that we may not have the strength to be able to delegate our lives in certain ways, and we get caught up with various responsibilities. There's a terminology, it's called the tyranny of the moment.
Okay, that's interesting.
Meaning, like, whatever's happening at that moment it's like tyranny. It takes over. You can't control it. So the point you made about prayer, bringing that in to our lives, because sometimes you have to, in humility, accept the things that you can't control, or may not be strong enough to overcome or to delegate, or the mind may continue to go to those things, but at the same time knowing they have to be overcome. So when you said to ask the Lord for help, in prayer, that was I felt that was really wonderful to hear. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Thank you for allowing Guru to guide me through the service of preaching. Hare Krishna. Talking to the devotees is always wonderful.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Okay, if there's no other questions, we can end the class here. Our gratitude to you, Parikshit Prabhu, for being with us on this Monday morning. Hope you have a wonderful week, as well as all the devotees. Our classes every morning, starting at 7:50, and in the evening, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, we have our Bhagavad Gita happy hour. And tonight we'll be joined by His Grace Ballabhadra Prabhu at 5 o'clock.
Jai.
Hare
Krishna Prabhu, thank you.
Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha.
Thank you very much, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Prabhu.